Criterion Studios is a UK-based developer that's primarily known for its middleware renderware, which is used to power a lot of popular games, such as, most notably, the Grand Theft Auto games. But it's also been making games of varying quality for several years now, and they've come closer and closer to really sort of hitting it big with their games. Burnout 2 was their last big game, came out in 2002, and it did catch a pretty good following. People who played it liked it. But now Burnout 3 is coming out, being published by EA, and this really looks like the one that's going to let Criterion catch on and step into the spotlight as a software developer. The whole premise behind the Burnout games has always been to just reduce the racing experience to a very raw, very visceral experience. It's all about reckless driving, driving very fast, and then really enjoying the subsequent crashes that inevitably happen. It got really good in Burnout 2, and it looks like they're really nailing it in Burnout 3. They're refining the formula, they're really honing it down, and it's getting a whole lot better. One of the fundamental changes that Criterion has made with Burnout 3 is in regard to the boost meter. Basically, in Burnout 2, you would get the boost meter whenever you would perform some sort of daring trick, some sort of crazy maneuver, driving into oncoming traffic, having a near miss, drifting around corners. And once the meter was full, then you could use it and boost and get ahead of your opponents. Now in Burnout 3, they're making the boost accessible at all times, so as long as you have any amount of boost in there, you go, which makes the game just feel a whole lot faster. The other big thing that they've included is the Takedown. The Takedowns basically allow you to run another driver off of the road and be rewarded with not only a full meter of boost, but also a boost multiplier, allowing you to just go faster for longer. It's a really impressive mechanic, and it is a whole lot of fun, and it really does add to the sort of on the verge of out of control feel that the whole Burnout series has been about from the beginning. So the crashes, the car wrecks, they've always been a central part of the whole Burnout series, but they've always been a pretty passive thing. You're going real fast, you misjudge a turn, a car comes out of nowhere at you, you hit a middle pylon, something happens, you wreck. And it's always fun to watch because it would always be a really fantastic wreck. But Burnout 3 makes it a lot more of a proactive part of the gameplay with the aftertouch system, which basically, once you wreck, it allows you to hit a button, change the timing so that everything slows down, and you can actually use the D-pad to influence the direction that the car goes. By doing this, you can score extra points by running into other cars, and you can actually get a special aftertouch takedown, which is a nice little bonus if you take down one of your opponents while you're in this slow-mo aftertouch mode. Again, it makes the whole crash mechanic a lot more proactive. It makes it actually a part of the gameplay. Now, the single-player campaign in the build of Burnout 3 that we've been playing is pretty straightforward. Basically, compete in an event, finish event, unlock new event, compete an event, so on and so forth. Now there's three main areas that you go to in the single player campaign. There's USA, there's Europe, and there's the Far East. So the pacing of the mode is pretty straightforward, but the game keeps it pretty interesting by just giving you a bunch of different modes to play as you go through it. You can expect a lot of different race types. There's going to be standard races, there's going to be one-on-one races, there's going to be elimination races. These are all pretty straightforward events. The real special ones, the ones that are kind of unique to Burnout, which make things really interesting. First is the crash mode, which we've seen in Burnout 2 before. Basically, the whole idea is to run your car into a crowded intersection of some kind and cause as much monetary damage as is absolutely possible. There was maybe a handful of different crash scenarios in Burnout 2. You can expect a full 100 unique crash scenarios in Burnout 3, which is a great number and it just keeps going. And there's also now power-ups, which sort of changed a little bit of the dynamic of things, because you can pick up power-ups as you're going through these scenarios that will give you score multipliers, give you cash bonuses. There are ones that will actually penalize you, and then there's instant crash breakers. Now, let's talk about the crash breakers for a second, because this is probably the most significant addition to the whole crash mode in Burnout 3. Basically, the way Crash Breaker works is that once you hit a prerequisite number of cars wrecked in your scenario, a Crash Breaker becomes available. You hit a button and your car basically just explodes and causes damage to every car that is anywhere near yours. So the crash mode seen in Burnout 3 has definitely improved over what we saw in Burnout 2. Brand new to Burnout 3 is the Road Rage mode. Basically, the idea is that you're in this race sort of situation and you have a time limit and you have a certain amount of damage that you can take, and you need to take down as many of your opponents as you possibly can. Which it is a very good balance between going really fast, which Burnout 3 does phenomenally, by the way, and causing a whole lot of carnage, which also another one of Burnout 3's fortes. Now, along with this very visceral gameplay, you can be sure to expect some very excellent graphics with Burnout 3. We've been playing both the PS2 and the Xbox version, and there's not a lot of difference between the two, but they both look great. Both have rock-solid frame rates. There's this excellent motion blur effect along the edges, which accentuates the already phenomenal sense of speed that the game gives you. It has these great camera cuts that it uses, both in the crash mode and in regular races. Whenever there is some sort of a wreck, the camera will, without cutting, it will spin over to where the action is, using this kind of cool blur effect that it kind of looks like what we saw in Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time. But in this context, it also works incredibly well for the whole sense of speed. And of course, the crashes that we've seen also look really great. Cars deform and just twist up really nicely. Tires pop off. You'll see, a spray of glass and just various metal debris flying all over the place with great sparks effects. The game just really does look good. It looks good for an Xbox game, and it looks phenomenal for a PlayStation 2 game. Burnout 3 Takedown is also part of the whole EA Tracks program, where EA takes a lot of licensed music and puts it together for a soundtrack for a game. In the case of Burnout 3, it's a lot of real punk and indie stuff. You might recognize The Vines, Franz Ferdinand, Pennywise, Modest Mouse, Sahara Hot Nights, the Moon Suzuki, the list goes on. Anyways, it is, you can tune it in both versions, and actually the Xbox version supports custom soundtracks. So if you're not digging the whole feel of the music, you can also just put in your own music. We noticed a few things about the game that seem a little bit unfinished. There was a little bit of odd scoring that was going on. Occasional, very minor slowdown, specifically in very large crashes. But for the most part, the game seems finished. It seems feature complete, and considering that the game is about a month away, that doesn't surprise us. The game is looking good. We have high hopes for this one, and we're looking forward to it this September. You can expect to see more on this game, including the game's multiplayer and online modes, in the near future here on GameSpot.